Welcome to the Creative Writing Career Podcast, where you learn how to make writing more than a hobby, make it a career. And here are your hosts, Stephan Bugaj, Justin Sloan, and Kevin Tumlinson.
Hello, everybody. This is the Creative Writing Career Podcast, and I'm Justin Sloan with my co-hosts Kevin Tumlinson and Stephan Bugaj. And today we have a very special guest. He is Elias Madias. I think I pronounced that right. I'll ask him after I read his bio. And he is a writer who has worked with the company Sleep Deprivation Lab as a script doctor on a number of AAA console games. The most recent being award-winning Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, and that's why we're all excited today. Previously, he worked in features in the family genre for multiple studios, including Disney Feature Animation, Universal, and 20th Century Fox. He has signed so many NDAs, he's unsure if he can even reveal his middle name in this bio, so he probably won't be talking at all today, but we'll be asking him questions and see if he can respond or not. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Awesome.
We're fantastic, man. Thanks
Great.
for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I came across Elias. How am I saying that right again?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. At the because we're both on a panel at the Austin Film Festival coming up. I think it's called something like Story in a Matrix or something like that. Storytelling in video games.
Yeah.
So pretty excited to be there and hang out at Austin Film Festival. Hopefully we'll see you in the Driscoll bar, where all the people are hanging out. And to get us started though, so what's your kind of background? How did you first get started?
How did I first get started in writing?
Let's go writing in general.
In life, how were you born?
How did you come into existence?
I always knew I wanted to be involved in some sort of part of the filmmaking process. I just didn't know what part. And I went to college as an English major and not a film major, and realized pretty quickly that there was not much filmmaking going on in Boston at the time. So I had to go out to LA, and I did a series of jobs kind of at the production assistant level and worked backwards through the film industry. So I started in market research, testing posters, testing ads, testing movies. Kind of thought that wasn't for me. Got a chance to do some very indie film distribution. So it was kind of going to see independent films, reporting what was good, what was bad, knowing what the scene was at the time, sending prints to festivals, promoting. Realized that really wasn't for me. Got a chance to be a director's assistant on an enormous movie at Warner Brothers that nobody has ever heard of because it bombed, called Mad City with Dustin Hoffman and John Travolta. Nobody's heard of it, right?
No.
But yeah, I got to be behind the scenes.
Is that crickets there? Is somebody doing crickets? Is that?
It's on my end and it's on.
Pure coincidence.
Somebody's breaking into the house next door.
Yeah.
So I got to work with the director, got to see what a film crew was like, realized that wasn't for me, and really all that was left was writing. And so a friend of mine at the time, who turned out to be my writing partner for 15 years, was a school teacher who got fired from her job just as the movie ended, and we said, let's write a script. Everyone in Hollywood's doing it. Let's do it. Yeah. So we wrote a script in, I think, 3 weeks. And he had a now what moment. And at the time in the LA Weekly, there were conventions, screenwriting conventions. And so we took our script and we printed up some business cards and we paid our whatever the entry fee was to get into the screenwriting convention, and immediately realized that although the speakers were great and a lot of fun to listen to, there was a lot more going on in the hotel lobby.
Yep.
And so we hung out in the lobby and talked to everybody, any writer that walked into the room, any agent, any lawyer, and we came out with our first lawyer from that event.
Wow.
Then referred us to an agent at ICM, and we got signed pretty quickly and started making the rounds. And our script went out. It got a lot of attention. It didn't sell, but I think got 40 general meetings off of it, met a lot of people, started going up for jobs. And we were writing romantic comedies, and after a couple of romantic comedies, we had a meeting at Disney Feature Animation and just really clicked with people. And they said, you would be perfect to write a movie about penguins.
I get that. I see that.
And we were confused because, all of our characters had thumbs and penguins don't. But we just kind of, we agreed and we wrote it out, and we worked on various projects at Disney Feature Animation. One was called The Snow Queen, which became a very popular movie nowadays. Changed the title. And I think you can guess which one. I don't know that I'm allowed to reveal it, but yes.
We're just going to gloss over that. We'll just
exactly,
because clearly what you're talking about is Aladdin.
Yeah, the live action Aladdin, right? That they were animated first, and then they changed. Yeah, gotcha.
And so we were just passed around from studio to studio writing family films. For about 15 years, which was fun.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be an amazing experience. I'd love to go try Disney for a little while. So
Disney was one of the best places I've ever worked. It was, and I was at Disneyland yesterday, so I have that Disneyland hangover where I have residual happiness.
Yeah.
So
we just talked to somebody yesterday, the day before, when we interviewed them at Disney World. So we should have arranged that to where you were at Disneyland while we interviewed you. That was our fault.
Maybe we can get this sort of vicarious connection going so that we can start hanging out at Disney World, Disneyland.
Yeah.
Live from Disney World Studios.
It's going to happen. So I have a lot of questions in there. I'll just start with one and see if these guys have any so I don't monopolize the mic. But you mentioned like the conference angle, and since we're going to be at Austin, I'd really love to hear, how you think that your experience could be leveraged for others who are, trying to get established. Do you think that kind of thing can happen at Austin? Is it as, useful to hang out at the Driscoll, the bar there? And what's your thoughts, kind of advice for newbies starting out there?
I think that is probably the best thing you could possibly do is go in, meet as many people as you can, shake their hands, and try to meet them as peers, because I think most people are very open and like to talk both about themselves and meet new people. And you never know what the connection is going to be that's going to push you forward in your career.
Mm-hmm. Cool. How about you guys?
So what are tips then for? Because the biggest hang up really when you go to these events and you start meeting people is everyone wants to they want to schmooze with an agenda. So what are some tips you might have for cozying up to somebody who might be helpful to you later without alienating them?
My biggest tip is don't ask, wait for them to offer. Because they will eventually. Like, you may have to talk to 10 people, but one of them will offer something at some point. And they're going to be asked by a million people, and they will appreciate not being asked. And that is actually how they will show appreciation. That's in my experience. So I hope the rest of the world works the same way, but
wait for them to come to you. That's always good advice.
I know some of the panelists, and I know that they have helped a lot of writers out. So I know they like to pay it forward as well, but people like to do it. They like it to be their idea. So I wouldn't push yourself onto someone as much as let them reach out.
How about on the other side of that? Like, have you spoken on many of these panels before? And what's kind of thoughts and advice for panelists?
This is my first podcast, and this will be my first panel. I'm terrified of public speaking. I am going to push through and do it.
I'm right there with you, so that's good. We'll hang out. We can hold hands if you want, or something.
We can.
That will definitely help. You guys holding hands while he talks is definitely going to help.
Yes. Luckily, it's on video, so that'll be even funnier. Yeah, more funny.
I did not know that.
I don't know, actually. They record a lot of the big panels. I don't know if our panel is considered big or not.
Justin.
Yeah. We're recording you right now, video. You didn't know?
Well, we have Gary Whitta, don't we, on our panel?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, uh-oh. And you, so... Yeah. It's going to be it could be one of the ones that we record.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, moving off of that, how did you get into video? I'm monopolizing again. So I have one more question. And then how did you get into the video game world then?
The video game world I got into kind of by a fluke. I received an email from a friend of mine named Bob Goodman, who's a writer on the show Elementary now. And he was friends with Christian Cantamesa, who wrote Red Dead Redemption, which,
nice.
I think is one of the best written games ever, and asked if I had any interest in doing this. And it was kind of a chance to learn a new genre from what I consider one of the masters of the field. And I said, of course. And money didn't really matter. It was really a chance to work with someone at that caliber in that field. And they would not tell me the name of the game, and they wanted me to submit a lot of family stuff, and I had a ton of that from my animation experience. And then they told me to watch every episode of Game of Thrones, and I was like, they're going to put me on a Game of Thrones game. How exciting. And so I sat down for a week and just plowed through season after season after season. I think it was at that point in the middle of season 4. So I, got on HBO Go and just absorbed every element and every relationship and knew everything about Game of Thrones. And then they finally hired me and they told me the name of the game, which was Shadow of Mordor, which was Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh, why the Game of Thrones then?
Yeah.
Well, we originally had hired you for Sonic the Hedgehog, but we weren't sure we were going to get the Lord of the Rings, so we were just kind of hedging our bets and decided you might enjoy Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Go keep you busy.
So it's like a nice first marathon. One of my favorite shows, so hey, that worked out.
Yeah.
So we hired for Sonic, I guess, and ended up on Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor.
That's an interesting shift.
It was. So it freaked me out because I had never written in that genre, and I kind of took to it really quickly. So,
what was the sort of the initial challenge there? Like getting into it, what did you face first?
The initial challenge was really jumping headfirst into an entire new industry. I think we had a unique experience based on every other experience I've had on Mordor. That Mike DePlatter really, and he was the design director of the game, really put his faith in every member of his team. So we had a hand in writing the cutscenes. We had a hand in writing all of the voiceover involving the main characters. We got a chance to sit in on recording and write lines on the fly if something wasn't working in recording. Mike DePlatter and Bob Roberts, who is also the lead designer, really put a lot of faith in everyone in the process. And it was also a crash course in game design that I really needed. So that was the most unique part of the process for me. It was also the amount of writing that goes into, everything I had done before that were features. I had done a couple of TV pilots, and that's between 120 pages and 30 on the TV pilot. The Mordor script came in at over 100 pages for the cutscenes, and then the voiceover was just... There was so much of it. We also did anything that involved backstories. So on the load screens, there will be little radio plays or songs. We had written all of those. If you find an artifact that involves a main character, we had designed it that there were little stories in there. And if you find certain artifacts and play them in a certain order, it's a 3-act radio play as well. And you get backstory from certain characters as well. So we did just massive amounts of writing on this.
Yeah.
My question is, did you ever manage to get John DiMaggio to do the Hammer of Sauron as Bender from Futurama? That's what I really want to know.
No, I think he actually did do that in recordings.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in terms of going from writing features to writing video games, other than the sheer volume difference of work, what did you find most different and most challenging about the actual crafting of the narrative?
We tend to work as script doctors, so we usually come in to fix something that has already been started. And so it is figuring out what's not working and patching it up, and putting on that Band-Aid and that Neosporin, and making sure that wound is, when that Band-Aid comes off, it is so clean you did not know it was there. So it was just finding the little things. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the game. An example of this is there's a dwarf character named Torvin, and he was originally written as a hunter, and that was really just his character. And he just needed a little something extra, and I'm going to take credit for it. Oh, sorry.
That's the Disney calling.
Yes,
actually,
exactly.
You've violated some NDAs already, and
the police are coming for you. The Disney police.
It's the big down.
So the character of Torvin was originally just a hunter, and he just needed some juice. And it was kind of hunting around for that. And the idea came from one of my favorite movies, Jaws, and the character of Quint. And, Quint is kind of this lone gunman almost. And he fully resents Richard Dreyfuss's character and the science behind him, because he thinks, he can go out there and get that shark using his methods. And that's where the idea of Torvin came out, and just kind of the idea that our lead character, Talion's military prowess was something to be mocked when you're hunting something. Mm-hmm. And so that's how that relationship was formed, and how that character came about, and kind of what we do as the company Sleep Deprivation Lab. Mm-hmm. We add that extra juice, basically.
I love that aspect of it, for sure. Yeah.
So I think a lot of our listeners, being where they are in their careers, for the majority of who's going to be listening to this podcast, don't really know what a script doctor does at all. Like, they might have heard some, snarky horror story from some writer who got rewritten about the horrors of the script doctoring process. But from the perspective of someone who does it, can you explain to our listeners like how it works, and like how they might do it, if that's something they're interested in?
Sure. You're basically tasked with doing is taking something that just needs a little bit of a shift. It is working. It just needs that little bit of a shift to become better. So there is a certain AAA console game. Everything I've worked on hasn't been released yet, unfortunately. So I can't mention their names. But we could be hired to do a dialogue polish on every cutscene, for example. And it's still the original writer's work. It's just tweaked just slightly. At least in terms of feature screenwriting, it's not about dialogue. Is one of the least important things. It's about content. It's about structure. And so it's just we usually will keep that structure. We'll keep the scenes. We'll just find that angle, that that different perspective that someone just may not have seen being so immersed in it, and exploit that. So that is an example of something we do. Other companies hire us for just big ideas. So they have an idea for a game, and we're brought in early to look at the game design and their idea for a story, and then come up with story elements that will raise the level of the story to the level of the game that they have on hand. does that make? I'm not sure if that makes sense without getting into specifics.
So. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
fix broken scripts is what you're saying.
Broken scripts is basically what it is, but we don't take over the scripts. We fix them. They're the original writers should still be very proud of that work because that exists because of them.
Have you had any backlash from writers?
No.
Are you pouring a scotch? Because I will take one.
A huge vat of coffee. That is currently coffee number 5 for me.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Becomes scotch in the bloodstream. That's what coffee does.
Scotch is a 10 a.m. drink, Kevin.
It's 10 a.m. here in Houston, so. Sorry, man. I interrupted. Go ahead. You were going to tell me about nightmares or backlash.
I've not experienced any backlash. I think writers expect, or at least in terms of the feature world and where I come from, writers expect to be rewritten. It is a collaborative process amongst many minds. I mean, in terms of what I saw for game design too, it was just even more people involved than on a feature or on the creative level. And so you're trying to hit that sweet spot, and it's, I think, incredibly difficult for one person to be able to hit that. I mean, Sleep Deprivation Lab on Shadow of Mordor, we were 5 writers. Working all together, and Christian, who it is his company, was also the director of the cutscenes. So it's definitely, we definitely had a lot of influence on the game, but there were still 5 minds going in order to work on that script that had already been written by someone else to start with. So. And that's not to mention all the other voiceover writers that were involved in different levels. When I say we wrote some of the Artifact radio plays, we did not write all of them. We wrote the ones that dealt with the main characters. So there were writers all over the world, actually. I think there were some in London. I think there were some in New York. And I know other places as well, all writing on Mordor at the same time. I wish I could take credit for some of those work lines, which were fantastic, but I can't.
So how do you keep all that going collaboratively? Like, how do you keep everything straight?
It all comes down to Mike DePlatter and Bob Roberts, who were the design director and the lead designer of the game, and they are like the hive mind.
Okay.
They're the ones who are keeping it straight. For us, we had a story we were trying to tell. We had arcs written out for all the characters. Whenever we would work on a level or a level, we would kind of track it in terms of the character's arc and where it should land, and where their headspace was, where their mood was, what their relationship was to the other characters in the game at that point, how Celebrimbor, who's the wraith that has possessed our lead, Talion, where they are in their relationship at the time. And so, we had kind of these big charts. Keeping everything going, yeah. We're chart people.
That's something I've never been good at, is the big chart. And maybe I should get into that. Maybe we should do that, Justin. We should have a big chart.
Yeah, I think it has to be really in charge of keeping it going.
Well, we got people in 3 states, so it'd have to be a really, really big chart. So other than Shadow of Mordor, what are some other games you guys have worked on? Or you personally have worked on?
I have. They have yet to be released, so I cannot name names.
Oh, man.
But
just make stuff up.
They're all first-person shooters, and they're. When I went to E3 the past 2 years, the sides of the convention center were covered with games that I'd worked on.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that's as much as I can say until they're released. So.
Okay, you've worked on. I'm sorry. Let me throw it in. You worked on games that are different than Mordor.
Yes.
What's the challenge in shifting between those types of games?
It's really the worlds. One was a big adventure game, and one I just had never delved into, and so I like to throw myself into research as much as possible. So I'll jump in and play past incarnations of them. If I'm given backstory, I'll read up as much as time allows on that backstory to try to mine anything I can find. Like if you find a line about some sort of idol that no one's ever heard of, you can slip it in there and add some color to something. There was a game set in New York, and I happened to be in New York during the, I think, 6 to 8 week period we were working there, and just spent a couple of days walking around and writing down anything I saw that could impact the game in terms of there are a lot of undercover agents, and who could be an undercover agent, for example. And oh, look, it's that mom with, then the nanny, let's say, could be an undercover agent. Who knows? Or the dog walker and his attack poodles. So things like that. Whatever, just kind of, it's mining a world for ideas. So yeah, look for a game set in New York.
Okay.
Look forward to that.
Oh my gosh, I hope you haven't violated your NDA. Let's narrow that down. Go ahead, Justin, you had a question.
I was just curious about how you got involved in sleep deprivation labs and how people, if they're interested now in following similar paths, I don't know if it can be replicated, but what kind of advice you'd have for people who might be interested in something like that?
I know SDL is occasionally looking for writers, so what's
the website for SDL? What's the site?
That's a good question. Let me Google that.
Well, don't Google that. The question's more important. That's a side.
Yeah, we can put it on the show notes after.
We will put it on the show notes. But go ahead. So so they're looking for a few folks. How would they get involved?
Yeah, I think they're always looking for a few folks. I think it involves sending your resume in, I was referred. That's how I ended up working for them. So it was just, it came honestly from a poker game. Okay. I used to play a lot of poker. I would like to play more poker. I play poker with writers. A writer had met Christian many years ago when he was living in San Diego working for Rockstar at a event at the Writers Guild, and I think they had been playing poker. I know there was a Writers Guild poker game, and that's how I originally met Bob Goodman is this writer's name, and I think Christian was looking for writers and sent out an email to all his contacts, and that's how I was put in touch with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked on the podcast before about, for our listeners, that it's very much a relationship business. And I think what Elias is saying really points to that as well. I've also been talking to Christian about doing some work with sleep deprivation labs, and that's come through relationships. So it really is, listeners, a matter of building your network and being friendly and, genuinely just hanging out with people and talking to people about stuff, and things will line up if you've got the talent and you're someone that people want to spend time with.
Yes. And since we're talking about Christian, I'm going to take a moment to promote his feature film that just came out on video, I believe, called Air, starring Norman Reedus and Jaimin Hansu.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
You can watch it on Amazon. I did that the other night. It's good.
Okay, I'm going to check that out. We'll have to put something about that in the notes. So we are at our time, so we probably better wrap this up. Elias, we really appreciate you being on the show. We've got some great insight here. So, and you can look for a flood of resumes. But we get to do it first, because since no one's going to hear this for a while. So we're gonna start resumes first.
Fantastic.
You put in the good word for us. So thanks for being in with us. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I think Justin has a child emergency, so we're going to we'll just
say hi.
close
I
up.
want to say hi. Say hi, bro.
Hi.
She's in here.
Did she hear us?
Yeah, my daughter stayed home sick today, so she's running in and out. I mute the phone every once in a while when I remember to. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you in Austin, and this will probably air after we were already there, so everybody can leave comments about how much fun they had with us getting drunk in the bar. So
fantastic,
excellent.
nice
Scotch for Kevin.
To meet you guys
Thanks, Elias.
Yeah, Kevin might be there too, Elias. So
yeah, maybe there too. So I'm looking
forward to meeting you guys.
Cool. Thank you very much. And oh yeah, anything else aside from? Oh, there she is. Did you? Dear? We could edit that out if we want to. If not, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, those are my friends, dear. I wanted to ask: is there any way you want people to get a hold of you? Websites or whatever?
I don't know. I've not thought of that.
If you have any, we can leave in the show notes.
Yeah, you can send them to us after, and we'll include them in the show notes. So anyone interested can check that out. So let's go ahead and wrap up. And thanks again for being on, Elias. And to all the listeners, make sure you're tuning in every week and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher so that we can get more kind folks like you listening to the show. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Writing Career Podcast with your hosts, Stephan Bugaj, Justin Sloan, and Kevin Tumlinson. We'll catch you next time.